Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Women's Physique Pro. Today's guest is Brooke Walker. Brooke, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, Brooke. Like I said before we hit record, there's a lot of people on my end that are really excited to kind of hear from you and hear a little bit more about you. So before we get there, though, I'd like to ask you, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
I think a lot of my favorite bodybuilders are bodybuilders that have impacted me. It was Jose Raymond. It has to be one of my all-time favorite bodybuilders. Jose was my first coach, and he was just a huge role model for me. And still to this day, I'm very, very grateful for what he's done for me. And your first coach always kind of has that impact with you. So I started off in bikini, and Jose Raymond just kind of laughed at me, and he had just won the Arnold. So I want to say, what was that, in 2014, maybe, that he had just won the Arnold Classic, and we were both associated with iForce Nutrition at that point. And I was competing like the next weekend in women's bikini, and Jose just laughed at me. Clearly that did not go well, and I did not place good at all. And shortly after that, Jose Raymond took me on, and he has just been an amazing influence for me. And still to this day, we keep in touch. So he's just a great, great guy. And I commend him for his bodybuilding career. He has arguably one of the best bodybuilding careers of all time. For somebody to have turned pro numerous times, all naturally as well, I commend him for that. And he's just a great guy. So when you have a bodybuilder that you admire their physique, and then they're just a good, genuine human being in addition to that, that's a huge plus. Juliana Melicarne is a huge, she's like one of my favorite all-time bodybuilders. I still mimic the women's physique division off of her physique. I think that she has beautiful lines, beautiful shape, beautiful structure. And she had just enough muscle in all the right places with some curves, and she was beautiful and poised on stage. And again, she's one of those individuals that not only is she a phenomenal bodybuilder and she impacted the industry in a very positive way, but she's just a good soul, and that just makes me so happy. And then, Ronnie Coleman, obviously, I think is somebody who is not a fan of him. Growing up, that's kind of who I always admired. And I remember looking at Flex magazines, in the aisles of like Walmart, and seeing photos of Ronnie Coleman. He was just a freak, and to be a kid and see somebody like that was just really intriguing to me. And I think seeing those things is kind of what pushed me to bodybuilding. I was interested in bodybuilding basically my entire life. So I'd have to kind of give him some kudos. The Ronnie Coleman Classic is actually the first bodybuilding show I ever did. And I was able to meet Ronnie Coleman there. And he really stood out to me, not only because of obviously who he was, but because of his genuine interest in all of his fans. He seemed like he just truly cared. He truly wanted to see all of his fans and greet them. And this year at this Olympia, Ronnie Coleman was in a wheelchair, and he was being wheeled out of the Olympia Expo, and he was being bombarded with people. And I, kind of was like, man, I wonder how he feels about that. But you see the look on his face, and he is just in heaven. Loving every second of it. So again, it comes down to these individuals that had great, great physiques and incredible careers, but they're just good people. They support their fan base, and they support the industry still to this day. So those definitely have to be my top three. And Dexter Jackson. I got to throw him in there too. I love me some Dexter.
Cool. Yeah, Jose, he's actually been a guest on the podcast, and I listened to him on, like muscular development, just one of those guys that you can't help but to like, right? And then I actually went to the 2008 Mr. Olympia and got to meet Ronnie at the BSN booth, and I own a gym, and I have a picture of him in his the last year he competed. He came out like in the kind of the king outfit, for his routine. So I got that picture signed and autographed, hanging up in the gym. So definitely some awesome people. Now I want to ask you, Brooke, at what age did you start lifting weights, and then why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
So I actually started lifting when I was 12 years old. And when I tell you that I have been lifting since I was 12, I've been lifting since I was 12. So that wasn't like, oh, I was just introduced to weight training and I picked it up at that point. And several years later, I started actually a lifting program. No, I started at 12. And I've always been a very small, petite girl, but I was always strong for my size. So one of my coaches at the time, a PE instructor, had kind of saw that, and he took it upon himself to tell a high school powerlifting coach that I was pretty strong for my size. So a coach came and got me out of class one day, and he took me up to the high school weight room, and he introduced me to a few lifts. So it was barbell bench press, barbell squat, and he power clean and a deadlift, right? So he taught me proper form and technique, and I just loved it. And I can't tell you why I just clicked with it, but I did. And he asked me if I would be interested in powerlifting, and I was. And from that minute on, I trained nonstop, and I just enjoyed it. And I played sports my entire life. And I was born and raised in Texas. And I'm very fortunate, this school that I went to, because if you weren't playing a sport, or if your sport wasn't in season at that given time, you were in an off season, and they push weights and they push strength and conditioning on you. So it really instilled some lifelong habits that I can truly tell you have really helped mold me into the person that I am today. And I just loved it. I remember lifting and maxing out and just having this huge rush and always having these goals on whatever particular weight it was that I was shooting for at that given moment. And still to this day, it's something that is just a huge vice for me, and I enjoy lifting. I still do it, obviously. But since I was 12, truthfully, I've been training since I was 12 years old.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, now we're gonna get into that a little bit more, but I want to kind of, so you mentioned you grew up in Texas. You grew up, obviously, you started powerlifting, right around 12. You played sports. Only child. Do you have any siblings? Like, talk a little bit about your family, and then what was Brooke like when you were, a little bit younger? Like, what was life? Did you guys grow up on a ranch? Did you grow up in a city? Like, just paint that picture a little bit for us, Brooke, please.
Yeah, I grew up in Texas. I grew up in a place called Lago Vista, which means Lakeview. So I grew up on a lake, Lake Travis to be exact, and it was amazing. I was always on the water, as a kid. I do have a brother and a sister. They're both older than me. And I enjoyed it. So one thing about my childhood, I did have some struggles in my childhood, which I think a lot of people do. And my biological father was in and out of prison my entire life, and he suffered from drug addictions and alcohol. He was an alcoholic, which later took his life. But I think, really, to be honest, there was never a lack of love in our household. So regardless of the circumstances, they weren't ideal, but I was very, very loved. And the way I kind of interpreted those things was that wasn't a life that I wanted for myself. So I think, in addition to being guided into lifting, I wanted to keep myself busy, because I felt like that was something that I could control, and it would help me get out of that situation in the long run. But my brother was a year older than me, and my sister is 10 years older than me. So my sister really wasn't in the household, but I did grow up with my brother. I was a huge tomboy, the biggest tomboy. I ran around with all the boys, got dirty, played in mud. I used to wear combat boots all the time. And I just loved it. But that's kind of like what molded me into the person again that I am now. My grandparents had a ranch in Lampasas, Texas, and they just are two amazing individuals that I remember. Some of my best memories of my entire life were on that ranch with animals. I'm a big animal lover. I don't eat meat, which I've said on tons of podcasts. So I think some people probably are aware of that. But I think that's why I just grew up on a ranch and I was taught to respect animals. And they were avid hunters, but I did not hunt. I've never shot and killed a thing in my entire life. But I loved it. I'm grateful for all the experiences that I had as a child, good and bad, because I can truthfully tell you that the reason why I am where I am today is because of those experiences. So, and I would never tell you that it was terrible, because I know that there's people in the world that have experienced way worse circumstances than I have. But, I'm not going to say it was ideal, but again, what is an ideal life at this given moment, but as a tomboy, always on the water, still to this day, I love to be on the water. I'm just in a landlocked state now, Arkansas.
Right. Okay. Now, what sports outside of getting into the powerlifting, what other sports did you play, Brooke?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I was a power lifter. I ran track. I ran the 4x100 meter relay, 4x200 meter relay, the 200 meter dash, and I did long jump and triple jump. So I was very, very athletic. I played basketball. I was more or less a defensive specialist. I was actually a defensive player of the year, and I did receive MVP. And I'm like a little tiny thing. I'm 5'2", short, but my coach used to always call me a bulldog, and that was a very, very valid statement to make, because I was all over the court and just fearless, absolutely fearless. And I cheered, which was kind of funny because, like I said, I was a huge tomboy, but I was a good cheerleader, and I still to this day like to perform. And I think that being a cheerleader has helped me perform in front of people from a bodybuilding aspect. But I did it all, and I wasn't opposed to, if somebody ever asked me to try something, I would try it. And I'm still just as competitive today as I was then. I love to play just about anything. So if I'm out playing like a volleyball match, I'm going to get into it, but I didn't play volleyball, but I will play volleyball every once in a while,
Love it. Awesome. Okay. Now, was there like a teacher or a coach or somebody maybe outside of your immediate family, an adult, that looking back on those younger years, Brooke, you feel like they were maybe a mentor, or they really positively impacted your life to where even at this point, as obviously an adult, a grown woman, you're like, that individual really impacted me this way or that way? If so, who is that person?
Yeah, I have several. So I want to say the first individual that impacted me, his name was Coach Anderson, and he was my PE teacher, and I think he was the first person that really saw that I might have something special in me. I was, like I said, I was little. I was a tiny little thing, but I was strong. I was quick, and I think something that was a great characteristic of myself was I was like a workhorse. I was coachable. So I always wanted to get better. I maybe wasn't the best athlete, but I was willing to do what I had to do in order to be the best athlete. So if I needed to come earlier for practice or stay later for practice, that was something that I wanted to do. And I always try to go the extra mile and ask questions. What is it that I can do to help me with whatever it was? And he did help me in so many different regards. Coach Elder was the coach that he had introduced me to, and Coach Elder is the one that showed me everything: proper form, proper technique. I had Coach Davis. He was an amazing person and very, very influential to me. And, I think he's probably the only coach out of those three that is aware that he impacted me so greatly at this point, because he believed in me. He truthfully did. And I'll never forget whenever, we do these. Oh, sorry, I don't know what's going on. But whenever you do these like banquets and things like that, whenever I was awarded MVP, it was shocking to me. I didn't expect it, so he was a major, major role for me. And Coach Boatwright was my track coach. And he used to always tell me, I want you to get pissed off. He would always say that because I would just smile at everything. You know, I was so competitive, but I just wasn't in my nature to like get mad. But you know, they all impacted me so greatly in different ways. But I don't even know if they really understand that they helped literally mold me into the person that I am today. But forever grateful. There's just so many people that have played a major, major role in my life.
Right. Cool. Love that. Beautiful. Okay. Now, before we kind of transition into kind of getting into the powerlifting and bodybuilding talk, when you were in high school, most of us, not all of us, but most of us start thinking about some sort of career or college or, you know, job post high school, like path, right? So what were you thinking about when you were a teenager? Like, you know, what you wanted to be, quote unquote, when you grew up? And then once you graduated high school, Brooke, did life kind of go in that direction or did it take you in a different direction? Talk a little bit about that, please.
So the funny thing about it is I've always wanted to be a coach and personal trainer, always. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do growing up. It's the craziest thing. And I knew that I wanted to leave Texas whenever I graduated from high school. So I did. I spent my first 2 years in Florida going to college there. And then I transferred to the University of Central Arkansas and for their kinesiology program. And I just stayed. Once I graduated, I stayed here. I absolutely love it here. It's a beautiful state. It's very quiet and peaceful. But yeah, it's as crazy as that sounds. I knew what I wanted to do, and I took my senior internship at 365 Fitness here in Conway, Arkansas, and I am still at 365 Fitness now. So the role that I have there is just amazing, and I'm forever grateful for everything that they've done for me. I manage the place. I've been there for 12 years. It's crazy. So I teach group exercise classes. I am a personal trainer there. And yeah, I always wanted to do this. The only thing that I kind of maybe switched out or went a different route with was I wanted to potentially do like strength and conditioning coaching at the collegiate level. And if you want my honest opinion on why I didn't do that, it's because I was going to have to be in school longer than I wanted to. And I was like, I got to graduate. I can't do it anymore. So I'm not doing that, you know? But yeah, I basically knew what I wanted to do and I went for it.
Nice. Okay. Now, I guess a follow-up question, what is it about personal training? And obviously, you know, you do teach the classes, you're in management, but specifically kind of just like the personal training stuff, the teaching the classes, like what is it about that, Brooke, that lights you up or brings joy into your life?
You know, I sometimes will get emotional about this, but my clients they're so important to me. And I don't even think that they understand just how important they are because, you know, you hear these people's stories and they have no idea how much of an inspiration they are. Everybody's going through their own issues, you know? And yet here they are, they're still making it to the gym. They're still being mindful and they care about their lifestyle. They're trying to better themselves, and everybody's different, whether they're being forced to go to the gym because their doctor has told them, hey, it's time, you've got some major health issues, or some of them it's a therapy session. You know, our workouts might not be the best workouts, but it does something for them emotionally and mentally, and I'm okay with that, you know. And then you have the people that are, man, they're intense and they train so hard and they're not going to miss a workout. They're not going to miss a meal. And it's like a melting pot of just different individuals. And I just love it. And it is one of the most gratifying feelings to have somebody say that you've changed their life, you know, whether they've lost a ton of weight or, you know, you just never know what you actually are doing for somebody until they tell you. And I'm so grateful for that because there's been people that have told me that were maybe on the verge of committing suicide at one point, and to hear them say that I helped them not do that is just, oh my gosh, how can that not be emotional for me and rewarding for me, you know? But I love it. And the group exercise classes, those individuals, I mean, it's a good energy, good atmosphere, and to kick their butt from time to time is really rewarding as well, you know. But I just enjoy it, and we're a family up there. These are individuals that I can tell you. I told you I was there for 12 years. There's some of those individuals that have been there with me for 12 years. So to see them and see how much they've changed in that time frame and how they've grown, as whether it's from a physique standpoint or just an individual, is completely amazing. And I know they probably feel the same way about me, because I've changed a lot in those 12 years too. But I get so much satisfaction doing what I do, and I'm truly grateful. And I say that all the time, but it's the truth. I get up and I get to do what I love every single day. So I wouldn't change it for the world.
What's been something that's what's the most challenging part for you personally as a trainer slash fitness instructor?
I think sometimes I'm too nice, and I don't know how to turn it off. So I'm at the gym 12 hours a day, and it's hard, and I will bite off more than I can chew all the time. I've done that my entire life, and I still do it to this day. So I'll take on more clients when I probably shouldn't. I'll stay later when I probably shouldn't, or come in earlier when I probably shouldn't. But I just love it. And it's hard for me to tell somebody no. In going back on, you never know what you're doing for somebody. If I can help somebody within that 1 hour, whether it's like just they need that from an emotional standpoint or whatever it is, physical standpoint, then I want to do it. And I do enjoy being there. It's tough at times. I guess the most challenging thing for me to be at the gym is, if I'm training, it's not in my nature to ignore somebody. So if somebody has a question, or if somebody wants to come up and sign up for a membership or buy a drink or whatever the case is, I'm going to stop what I'm doing to go tend to them. So I get interrupted literally every day, but that's the nature of the beast. And, that gym pays my bills. So I'm not about to be an asshole to anybody, and I do love every individual there for the most part.
You are much kinder and sweeter than myself, because I train in a completely different place, because I can't handle people coming up and interrupting me. So I get it, but you're much kinder than I am. So, okay, Brooke, let's take a step back. I want you just to talk a little bit about the powerlifting that you did starting at 12, because obviously that laid the foundation of strength training and bodybuilding where you're at today. And then once you kind of talk a little bit about the powerlifting, start discussing or sharing with us when you kind of started setting your sights on competing more in the bodybuilding realm, please.
Yeah. Okay. So at 12, I started powerlifting. And the way I was introduced to it at that point was 4 lifts, right? But it was power clean. And for whatever reason, that's our coaches just kind of had us power clean all the time. Power clean, squat, deadlift, and bench press. From a powerlifting standpoint, at a powerlifting meet, you have 3 lifts, right? So you have your barbell bench, your deadlift, and your squat. Now, I competed in the 97.5 weight class. It was a little thing, and I just loved it. And I remember you have milestones, and I just remember it was such a huge deal for me when I broke 95 pounds on my bench press. That's so funny to say now, but I remember it was a big deal. I finally got 100 pounds, and I just was on cloud 9. And then from 100 pounds, it was like I wanted to get to 135. Once I got to 135, I was just on cloud 9 there. And same thing applies for my squat and my deadlift. And I still, to this day, it kind of just has been like a pyramid. Just kind of, I've been trying to gradually increase bit by bit. And I still enjoy lifting heavy to this day, and I still have goals that I want to achieve, but I have to be mindful of what it is that I'm doing so I don't hurt myself, because I don't have to necessarily be strong. I just have to look like I'm strong, but I was a great power lifter, and I truthfully was. So I was third. I was number 1 in the region, and then I was 3rd in the state of Texas in the 97.5 weight class. So I lifted all throughout high school, even throughout my senior year. And it got harder and harder for me to cut weight. So there was a couple times that I did lift in the 105 weight class. My last year, I had to choose whether I wanted to lift in the 105 or the 97.5 weight class because I had qualified in both. And I had a pretty big weight cut that I had to make. And I made it down to 97.5 weight class. But whenever I was warming up, I felt just weak. And I knew that I was in a bit of a panic at that point because my warm up lifts were substantially heavier than they should have been. And, once you have an opening weight set, you can't back out of it. You can't drop it. You have to get that weight. Otherwise you're going to be disqualified. Well, anyways, I got disqualified. So, my first 2 attempts on squat, I bottomed out. I couldn't lift it. My last attempt, my coach was kind of like, I'm going to call you up a little early and hope for the best. Let's just kind of like freak out, act like we're happy that you got the lift, and let's see if they give it to you. And so that's what he did. And they disqualified me because I didn't hit depth, I wasn't at parallel. But, it taught me lessons. I was really upset. That was my last year in powerlifting. And here I am, like I could have been number 1 in the state. And I was just ticked off and just devastated, So from that point going forward, it's funny because I had always looked at bodybuilding magazines, like I was telling you, just growing up. And it was like just random people would ask me things like, you should compete, you should go do a show. And I always dabbled with that idea, but I never went out and pursued it. And I'd say, maybe I'll do it. Well, then one day I was like, you know what? Okay, I am going to do it. And I just went in. I did the Ronnie Coleman Classic in 2012 without a care in the world. I didn't really do anything in terms of prepping for it. I was like, I'm just going to go in, do this, see if it's something that I want to do and that I'm going to like. No pressure on myself. And I went in and I got 5th place as a bikini competitor there. That class was stacked. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I really had no idea that I had placed 5th, but a girl had come back to me backstage and she was like, oh my gosh, you made first call outs and it looks like they had you in that 5th place spot. And here I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, that's great. And I loved it. It was the best experience ever. And some of those girls I'm still in touch with to this day. So it's just, it was really rewarding. And I just knew that I was hooked at that point. And I think then I was probably okay to stay in bikini, but the way my training was and just how I just love to lift, I just continued to get bigger and bigger. And I eventually knew that I had to make the step up and I was going to go to figure, but physique is just more my jam. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go physique, ditch the heels. I'm going physique.
Okay. Now I want to ask you now, if you don't mind me asking, in 2012, when you first did your bikini competition, how old were you at that point? Were you like in college or something?
Yeah, I was in college. Yeah, I was 22.
Okay. And then you said Jose Raymond was your coach for that first competition?
No, so okay, he was not my coach for my first bikini competition.
I see. Okay.
Yes, so I competed in several bikini shows. And I did okay, like I got 5th, I got 4th at one, then I got like 7th and one, I was not really doing that well. It was like kind of, I shouldn't have been in bikini. I'll just say that. I shouldn't have been in bikini. And in 2014, I was there at the Arnold Classic and Jose and I were doing some filming and shooting for iForce Nutrition. He's literally laughing at me when I'm telling him that I'm going to go compete at this. It was like the St. Louis Pro Midwest Championships that next weekend. And he's laughing at me like, you're not a bikini competitor. You do realize that, right? And I'm like, well, I've already entered in. So it is what it is. I got to go compete. And being backstage at that show the following weekend, they're calling for like women's physique and they keep coming to me. They're like, women's physique, we need you. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, I'm not in women's physique. And so I knew, I had an idea that I definitely shouldn't be in that division, but what are you going to do? I had already entered in the show. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to be that person that just doesn't show up. So I competed and I got like 7th or 8th place. I don't know. It was a huge show. That Midwest Championship show is like one of your biggest amateur shows of the year. It's a great show, but I got killed. I got destroyed, rightfully so. And the head judge came to me after that show, and he said, "You screwed yourself. You're in the wrong division." So it's like every person is telling me, "Get the heck out of bikini. What are you thinking?" And so that's when I reached out to Jose, and I was like, "Okay, let's do this. I'm clearly in the wrong division. You're right." And he took me on, and he's just amazing. And he cared about my life outside of bodybuilding as well. And, I think it's very important. There's people that, you have a life after bodybuilding. So I think you have to be very mindful of what it is that you're doing in order to remain healthy long term. So Jose cared about those factors, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, before we continue in the competing, I do want to ask you, because you said that you don't eat meat, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Correct.
And I know you said that you've brought this up on other podcasts, but I didn't personally know that. So for those of us who don't know that and how you kind of navigate that as a bodybuilder, because that's obviously unique, when did you kind of adopt that lifestyle? And then how has that worked for you, or how have you made that work for you as a competitive bodybuilder?
Yeah, so going back to like my childhood, I've always been just an animal person. It hurts me to see animals hurt. I have dogs. I have always been the person that's going to stop and pull over on the side of the road to get a turtle out of the street or pick up a dog. I can't tell you how many times I've done stuff like that. And it drives me crazy, but I can't help myself. I have to do it. And when I was 17, actually at Thanksgiving, I was like, I got so upset about how many turkeys they slaughter for the holidays. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore, and it's not that I disliked meat. I did, I enjoy eating meat. I enjoyed steak. I enjoyed all those things, but I just couldn't do it. So I just was like, I put my Thanksgiving plate down. I was like, I'm done, and I have not touched it a day since. And I'm 32 now. So I have not, my entire basically bodybuilding career has not been with meat. Now I do eat eggs and I will eat fish, but mostly I eat a lot of tofu, lots of beans, things like that. And it doesn't bother me. It hasn't seemed to hinder me too much by any means, but, and it's not like I would ever tell somebody not to eat meat. I'm not that person. It's like out protesting and doing things like that, but it's just a personal choice. And I, at some point, probably will give up fish. I go long periods of time where I don't eat fish, and all my eggs have to be like cage free. So I can't, it's sometimes it stresses me out how weird I am with stuff like that, but it just drives me crazy. If I see an 18-wheeler with like chickens on it, it drives me, it makes me so upset, but it is what it is. It's one of those tendencies I just can't help.
Do you consume like whey protein or not?
Yes, I will consume whey protein on occasion, but for the most part, I actually do vegan protein.
Okay, cool. Very interesting. Love it. Okay, now, so you start out in bikini, and then you kind of getting all the signs like, hey, this division isn't for you. Then you connect with Jose. He starts to coach you in women's physique. Why don't you walk us through that, those early experiences, and then when did you turn pro, and then just start kind of unpacking a little bit of like, when did you make your pro debut, touch on some of the highlights of your pro career, and then we're going to work our way into Olympia talk.
Yeah, so I competed in bikini, and once Jose took me on, our original game plan was to go to figure, and so I started prep for figure. At that point, it was April of 2014, and I was already in shape, because I had just competed in bikini. So I was practicing my figure poses one day at 365 Fitness, and I thought, you know what? I think I like the idea of women's physique. I like to perform. I like the idea that I could have my own individualized routine to my own music. I don't have to wear heels. That's a plus. And I felt like I had enough muscle to be in physique at that given moment. And Jose agreed. He thought that I could be competitive in that division. So he was completely okay with that. So 2014 happens. I went and I got a qualification to compete at the national level. So I won my first women's physique competition in August. Well, the end of July, like the end of July in 2014. I won the overall there, and I rolled right into North Americans, and I missed my pro card by one spot, but I had the time of my life. I again went into North Americans with no expectations. I just wanted to see where I stood at the national level against competitors that were very, very good. And I loved it. So my game plan for 2015 was just to roll right into a national level show and potentially grab my pro card. So Jose had me do a test run show in Boston. I won the overall there in 2015. And then I went to Junior USA's, which was the next weekend. And I again missed my pro card by one place. And actually I was pretty arrogant because I remember being on stage for Junior USA's, and there was one girl that I thought could have potentially beat me, and they called her for third place. And I'm like, I turned pro. That's what I'm thinking in my head, and they called me for second. So I didn't turn pro. I was so upset about that. And I was so dieted down at that point. I was exhausted, and I was in this odd in between. Do I wait for the next year, or do I roll into junior nationals? Well, I'd already missed the deadline to enter in for junior nationals, but they allowed me to enter in late, and I did. I went to junior nationals in 2015, and I felt like I was on my deathbed, but I'm so grateful that I did it because I won my class and I won the overall there, and I got my pro card. It was an incredible experience. I was on cloud 9, and I was so relieved to have finally got my pro card. And that was my third national show. And there's some people obviously that will go years and years and they don't reach that. They don't get that infamous pro card. So I was grateful for that. I made my pro debut in 2016, and I got second place there at St. Louis Pro. And I basically, every pro show I ever did, I got second place. And it was ridiculous because I could never get my qualification for the Olympia. And I would get so ticked off because I'm like, just give me my second place trophy. I mean, I was known for second place. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. But I just qualified. I qualified based off of points in 2017. And I was just out of shape and not anywhere near Olympia condition in 2017 to have competed there. So I finally got my first pro win last year in 2021. And to be honest, I was going to retire. I was going to be done. John Meadows took me on, and I was so honest with him about this. I told him that this was it. If I don't qualify for the Olympia this year, I'm done. I will no longer compete. I love this sport, but I can't keep doing this to my body just to finish in second place. I am never going to be the athlete that competes over and over and over again. That's just not me. The times that I have done that, I've progressively gotten worse instead of getting better. But I went into last year, 2021, thinking, all right, John, let's do this. If I have to compete multiple times, I'm going to be okay with that. But I have to get this qualification. Otherwise, I'm wrapping it up and I'm moving on to something else, But I got it. Last year was the first time that I did progressively get better from show to show. And I finally got my qualification. And by the grace of God, I placed top 3 at the Olympia last year, which gave me the qualification for this year. So I was so relieved because I needed an off season. I've been dieting for so long. And in order for me to put on a little bit of muscle in the areas I needed it, I had to be in an off season. So it was essential. And I'm glad that I was able to do that.
Okay. So I was going to bring up John because I saw a post about him at some point on your Instagram when I was kind of prepping for our talk today or conversation. So talk about the impact that John Meadows had on you, and what was it, what did it mean to you that, obviously his passing, but then that year that you connected with him, you got your first pro win, you got that Olympia qualification. Like, talk about the magnitude of maybe like the emotions, the feelings, and just kind of everything that last year was wrapped up in, obviously John's passing and what he means to you, obviously current day.
John is one of the most incredible human beings that I've ever had the opportunity to meet. A coach means so much more to me than just a coach. And I think the reason I have that mentality is because every coach I've had, I've been coached my entire life, right? So whether it's bodybuilding or not, I've had somebody that has greatly impacted me. So going back to when I was first introduced at such a young age to weight training at 12, those coaches, they were leaders to me, and they cared about me, and they helped mold me into a good person. So it wasn't necessarily like they were just concerned on, oh, I just want to make sure you're the greatest athlete of all time and you can be at your absolute best in that regard. They cared about that. They wanted to help me with my performance and make sure that I was at my absolute best. But they helped mentor me into being a good person and making good choices just in life, you know. And they were hard on me, but they weren't jerks to me, you know. And so something that has always been major. Uh, if you're a coach, especially in the bodybuilding community, and you're just kind of like an arrogant asshole, I don't want anything to do with you. You know, I want somebody that is going to care about my well-being, you know, mentally, emotionally. And I'm not saying you have to hold my hand. That's not what I'm saying. But you shouldn't get offended if I'm asking questions, because I'm a person that asks questions. I've been asking questions my whole life. And my coaches always encouraged me to do that. But coaches now, they don't necessarily, some, I'm not putting everybody under an umbrella, obviously, but they don't necessarily care about your well-being after bodybuilding, or they don't care about your life outside of bodybuilding. They care about bodybuilding only and how well you're going to do at that particular show that they're prepping you for. And that's something that I don't want. And John was like a father figure to me. I mean, he did care about those things. It was just amazing. He wanted me to be at my absolute best for my sake. You know, it would obviously benefit him, but he wanted me to reach my goals for me. And I just was so always just grateful for that. He cared, like I said, he cared about what it was that I was going through at that given time. He cared about the stressors in my life. He cared about, you know, what I was going to do, what were my plans after bodybuilding, what did I expect, he cared about all those things. And I was just so grateful for him. When he passed, I was devastated. I was so upset because he passed the night that I got my qualification. So you're going from one extreme to another in a matter of hours. So we get this qualification. I'm on cloud nine. Finally, I have qualified, and you know, that was my third show of the year last year, or my second show of the year, and I just been on the phone with John, and we're just pumped up, you know, and he's like, okay, enjoy tonight. I want you to go have some free meals, enjoy tomorrow. And then we're starting Olympia prep on Monday. And the next day when I'm getting ready to get on my plane and fly home, somebody sent a message to John pass. And I'm like, no, there's no way. So I get on social media, because at that point you think that would be everywhere. Well, it was nowhere. And I sent John a text message and I said, are you okay? And Mary called, you know, from John's number and said that he had passed. So I just felt like my entire heart just sank, you know, and it was just a multitude of reasons. I, again, just qualified for the Olympia. So I'm in this panic, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I have to have a coach going to the biggest show of my entire career, which I felt selfish for, because here is this man that has passed, that is a husband, he's a father, and he's much more than just a coach, you know. So I felt terrible for his family. And when John passed, I feel like he made such an impact on the industry that we took a huge hit. And I still think that we take a huge hit from it, because he is just a genuine soul. I was on the phone with him. I think he was maybe going to Chicago Pro or Tampa Pro. I can't remember, but it was funny because he's on the phone with me and he's in the airport, and somebody in the airport recognizes him, and John's just talking to him, and he snaps a photo with him. And that just really it made me more in awe of him because he is such a popular person, but he just sounded so genuine and just absolutely, I'll take a photo with you, you know, and he's on the phone with me, you know, so he's a great soul, and we lost a great individual. He'll be forever missed. There's not one day that goes on that I don't miss him. My prep for the Olympia this year, I can't tell you how many times I listened to John Meadows motivational videos, and I still will, because he motivates me and he inspires me, and he will forever do that.
Cool. Now you go from getting all these second places, Brooke, right, as a pro, and you're at the point where you're, hey, if I don't get this Olympia qualification, I'm going to retire. I'm going to just kind of move on. You get your Olympia qualification, win your first pro show, and you get top 3. Then you come back this year, you get top 3 again. Like, talk about like that breakthrough, because obviously you're kind of hitting a wall, hitting a wall. You're kind of at your breaking point. Then you break through, and then you've got back-to-back years, you know, top 3 at the Olympia. Like, talk about that. What does that mean to you? What does that mean to your career? Like, what do you kind of see yourself in terms of going forward as a competitive athlete?
These past 2 Olympias have just been completely and utterly incredible. I last year went in with no pressure mentality, kind of, and I try to do that with every show, if I'm just being honest. Like, don't put any stress on myself. The only thing I can control is the package that I bring. So if it's good enough, then it's good enough, and it's not, it's not. You know, I can't control what everybody else is bringing. But I was at my absolute best last year at that Olympia, and man, it was just the most incredible experience of my entire life. Everything was just amazing, and everything just worked out. This year, I had the same mentality, you know, and I did put some pressure on myself this year because I didn't want to be knocked out of the top 5. And each year, these divisions are evolving, and you could say that in every regard, whether it's male or female divisions, they're getting better, they're getting harder, they're getting more conditions. So I knew that it was going to be tough to stay there. And I'm not one to think that I cannot be beat. I will never have that mentality. I know I can be beat, and I don't want to be beat. So I put every ounce of what I had into this prep. And it's funny because each prep that you have, you're typically probably going at 100%, you know, you're leaving no stones unturned, but each prep, for however you can figure it out, you're able to go a little bit harder in some sort of regard. And that's what I did this year. I went 110% in everything that I was doing, whether it was my eating, my sleep, my cardio. I pushed my cardio harder than I ever pushed it. I pushed my training harder than I ever pushed it. Pushed my posing harder. Because I didn't want to be knocked out of that top 5. Once I'm there, I want to stay there. And that, I mean, that's going to be my mentality going into it next year as well, to keep that spot, and hopefully move up in the ranks, you know, but I have to get better, and I know that, and I feel like I can, but I take each show as it comes. So I focus on one show at a time. I don't focus on anything after that. So when anybody asks me, I'm like, I have no idea. I have no plans. I got to focus on this one first. But the Olympia this year, it was incredible. I will tell you, I had tons of different obstacles that happened going into this Olympia, and by the grace of God, and just I had so many people supporting me, I was able to just go in tunnel vision and focus completely on Olympia. Once I was at the Olympia, and I actually haven't even announced this, and I haven't spoken to anybody about it except the people that needed to know. My stepdad, the man that raised me, passed while I was in Las Vegas on Tuesday before I was going to compete. And it was devastating. Like, I couldn't, at that point, I had to manage my stress. I had to put it on the back burner. And that sounds terrible, you know, but I had to, because the Olympia meant so much to me. And the last thing he told me was to kick ass. And so I just was like, that's what I'm going to do. I got to continue for him. And I did. And it was my best showing to date. And I can't wait until next year. I need the time, but I can't wait.
So is your ultimate goal then to win the women's physique Olympia then, I'm assuming?
Yes, that is the ultimate goal. I truthfully believe that it is attainable. I think that I can do it. I just have to make my weak points my strong points. And that's the name of the game. It's the name of bodybuilding. And obviously I have my work cut out for me, because these girls are just incredible. I think Natalia coming in, she just looked phenomenal, and I'm very, very happy for her. You can never count Sarah out as well. And then here's the thing, you can't count any of the girls that are qualifying out, because there's always people that are right there in the mix, and they're just, like I said, they're getting better and better. So it's not like someone can come in and they can't beat me. I can be beaten. I just hopefully I won't be beaten.
Okay, so I saw that Matt Berzakot was coaching you. When did you connect with Matt? He's been on the podcast several times. He's actually I gotta say this, he's actually a fellow Iowan, so he's from Iowa originally. So when did you connect or link up with Matt and talk about him just as a coach? Because I know that he's another one of those guys that's just, he's a great human along with being an excellent, great coach. So talk about Matt for a quick minute, if you don't mind, Brooke.
Yes, absolutely. So I had reached out to Matt after the Olympia last year. Well, Matt Jansen connected us, and Matt Jansen last year, after the amount of people that came to my aid after John passed last year was just amazing. Can tell you that it was just, I'm so grateful for it. So many coaches came out and just were in support of me and told me that they would do anything that they could to help me in order to get me through the Olympia. Matt Jansen was one of those individuals who was very, very supportive of me. After the Olympia, I had spoken to Matt Jansen about coaching, and Matt was just concerned that, you know, he had several athletes that were going to be in the Olympia this, you know, in 2022. And he was concerned that he would potentially be kind of biting off more than he can chew. Right. And he told me that Dallas McCarver was who gave Matt a chance. And he said, Matt Berzakot is a phenomenal coach. He just needs somebody to give him a chance. And he connected us, and I talked to Matt on the phone, Matt Berzakot, and kind of going over those things that I was telling you. We talked, and I said, you know, I don't like jerks and arrogance. And if I have a question, I don't want you to just be like the coach. It's like, just follow the plan. Don't ask questions, you know. I want you to care. I want us to have an actual relationship, you know. And I again told him, you don't have to hold my hand through the process. I am familiar on what I'm doing, and I'm not, you know, going to be terrified to compete, that sort of thing. But I also want you to care about my well-being and just be a good person and care about the person that I am outside of bodybuilding. I want those things. And Matt, we just clicked, you know. He just, all of those things that I wanted, he's the epitome of them. And he is an absolute phenomenal guy, and he has been by my side every step of the way. I can't say enough good things about him, to be honest. And then going into the Olympia, he was just there. I mean, making adjustments as needed. He was running me through posing nonstop. I truthfully think that we're going to be like the dream team. I swear we are. I'm very, very excited on this off season that we're going to have going into the Olympia next year. And I think we're just going to continue to get better. And I'm a very loyal person, and I think that Matt is it. So I pray to God nothing ever happens to him, because I need him.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, great dude. And I when I saw that he was coaching you, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because again, you know, as you know, in the fitness bodybuilding industry, as you've kind of mentioned, there's just a lot of jerks. That's a nice way to put it, right? So when you find a good person within the industry, it's a breath of fresh air. And it's like, those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. Those are the people that you want to compete with, you want to do battle with, and enjoy life with. So that's great. Okay, we're going to start wrapping it up, Brooke, but I want to ask you, when it comes to like setting goals for yourself or goal setting, are you the type of person that kind of writes things out, plans things out, or do you kind of just have goals and aspirations in the back of your mind? Like, how do you kind of work through the next steps of whatever you're pursuing or chasing within your life?
Oh, I write everything out. I'm so old school. I have Post-it notes everywhere. I leave myself reminders on whatever it is that I'm focusing on that given time. Whenever it came to long before I ever turned pro, I had wrote down on Post-it note my goals, and it was to compete in my first show, turn pro, make it to the Olympia stage, win Miss Bikini Olympia, because that's what it was at that time, you know. But it makes me so proud of myself because I wrote all these things down and I'm pursuing it, you know, and it's been a long journey. It has not been easy, and it hasn't been easy for most people that are in the same shoes as me. But the simple fact that I've continued and I'm chasing my goals year after year, no matter what, no matter the setbacks that I have, is just something that I'm going to forever be grateful for and proud of. And I still to this day write all sorts of things. I mean, I have a planner and I write, if you only knew the things that I write down in that thing, you know, and I put notes in my phone. I save everything. So every Olympia prep, every contest prep is saved in my phone. And it's funny because in addition to having like my check-ins and my weigh-ins and my notes, I have just like subtle reminders of why are you doing this? Or if something stood out to me for that particular day, or if somebody told me something that stood out to me that particular day, I'll save it. So it's awesome because whenever I'm struggling in a prep, I'll go back and I'll look at those things, and they're just subtle reminders that help me remember, why are you doing this? You know, and that goes back to people just, you don't know whenever you tell somebody something how much of an impact it can make. And I don't think some people know how much of an impact they've made on me, or how many things I've screenshotted and saved in my phone, because that just piece of advice or those little words that they happen to say, those kind words, really just helped me get through something at that given moment. So yeah, I save everything. I write everything down. I'm cheesy and I don't care. It is what it is.
I think that's cool. I'm the same way. There's a post-it note right here. I call myself, I don't think this is even a word, but I call myself a wordy. I just, there's something ever since I was a kid, like, I just like, there's like certain words, like I had the word forward was my word for 2022. And I've got a new word for the next year. Cause words for me, they obviously they hold weight, they hold meaning, different seasons of life. There's different quotes, there's different, like you're saying, people speak different things into your life that just have different impacts at different times. Is like, and when I write things down, it's my way of kind of releasing. It's like, okay, like I received it, I wrote it down. Now I can kind of move on and receive whatever else life or, what have you is going to come my way. So I'm right with you. I love that. Okay. Let's touch on here quickly, training, because everybody obviously with bodybuilding, training is a huge part of that. You mentioned kind of still chasing after certain, goals in terms of lifts and things like that. I guess what I want to ask, Brooke, how has your training, let's just say over like maybe the last 3 years, how has it evolved? How has it changed? Kind of like, what's your style up to this point or current day?
I'll say I always kind of refer to my training as a hybrid approach. So the power lifter in me likes to keep the strength training in, and then the bodybuilder obviously likes to kind of go for like the more volume, drop sets, all that kind of fun stuff. But I still do 5x5s all the time, and it's because I just love it. It's like I can't tell you that I'm doing it specifically for a reason. I do it because I can't help myself, you know, and I just enjoy that kind of style. So I kind of do a hybrid approach. So like, for example, if I'm doing bench press, I'll do 5x5 bench press. And then going forward, I'll kind of increase my volume and my tempo and do, I'm a big fan of supersets. I know some people don't love it, but, for me and my job, sometimes that's what I have to do. So like, if I don't have an allotted amount of time, and it's a short amount of time, I'm going to have to get through what I can at that given moment. So I do a ton of volume work, lots of supersets, drop sets, things like that. I train back and legs twice a week, and then I train chest once a week. And Matt, actually going into this off season, we're going to try to make sure that my training is a little bit more, my workload is less, because just like I'm telling you, I have a tendency to, I'll say overkill. So I love to do drop sets, supersets, things like that. Matt wants me to kind of ease off of those things. So just be a little bit more efficient with my training. And I agree. I agree with him in that approach. So especially in areas that are my weak areas, I need to be very, very efficient and mindful of what it is that I'm doing. And from my backside is an area that has improved, but we need it to be better. So we are actually kind of interested because we're going to be changing up my training a bit going forward into my off season for the Olympia next year. So this will be a whole new style for me. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited, but I love, like I said, supersets, volume, all that kind of thing. I teach group exercise classes, and so it's not uncommon for me to be in there doing some sort of aerobics class, or the instructors that we do have teaching, people just enjoy seeing me die. So I have to go in there from time to time and, you know, participate in some of these classes. But I just enjoy fitness. So it's not uncommon for me to see me do a multitude of different things.
Cool. What's what do you are you able to fit in you know, like recovery work, like chiropractic, massage? Like, if so, is that only during prep? Is that weekly, monthly? Like, talk a little bit about that, because that's obviously a big part of progress as a competitive athlete.
So I'm a big believer and supporter of active recovery. So in season, off season, it doesn't matter. I get chiropractic work and deep tissue work done on a weekly basis. And even whenever I'm deep into contest prep, some of that is actually like multiple times within the week. But absolutely, hands down, if you have somebody that specializes in that, I would recommend it to everyone. And I understand that it's an added expense. It's more of a finance, but and you don't have to maybe necessarily do it weekly. If you can do it monthly, do that, or do chiropractic every 2 weeks, and then maybe a deep tissue massage once a week or something. But I have people that have been working on me for years, and they have played a role in my progression. It's major. It's huge. And I think a lot of people often overlook that, especially when you're beating your body down. You continue to break it down, but you're never allowing it ample times to recover, or kind of helping areas where you might have some scar tissue or adhesions, things like that. And it's huge. I wish more people would take an active approach on it. So I love it. I love when people like massage me too. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. I get it done weekly, chiropractor and massage, and I think it's essential. So, okay. I want to ask you, in terms of like, bodybuilding as a whole, and kind of like looking at the industry, like maybe like a bird's eye view, what's something or a couple of things that you would like to see change, or, you know, would like to maybe see just go away in terms of the industry?
I think here recently there's been a lot of things that have been brought into light a little bit in regards to bad coaching styles or methods, things of that nature. Things that people are doing that are just too risky. And I am grateful that some of those things are being brought to light. However, I do wish that there would be something that would be done, I guess. And I can't give you the answer on what I think should be done, because I'm not really quite sure on that myself. But I do believe that something should be done. You have a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches that are doing things that are just things that shouldn't be done. And I understand that we're assuming a lot of risk just within being in the sport, in this industry, because we're pushing our bodies to a level that it should not be pushed to, right? This isn't overall health and general wellness. We're going to an extreme. So we're all assuming a risk. But I do think that there's a difference between a risk and just being plain stupid. And I think that some things, unfortunately, are just stupid. And I wish competitors would be more mindful of that. And I wish some coaches would be a little bit more mindful of that. So I don't know what the answer would be to fix those problems, but I wish that at some point they would be addressed. I'm happy to see that prize money is increasing. So it has increased, but I do wish that there would be a little bit more equality across the board when it comes to prize money. I think that there is a lot of money within the sport and the industry. And I think that some of these top level athletes probably should be walking away with a little bit more money than they are. But I think maybe those are being addressed. I look back and I believe, like, for women's physique specifically, when Women's Physique first started, I think the prize money for first place was $10,000, where now it's at 50,000. So I do think that there's being steps that are taken to maybe increase there. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I guess that's about it, you know.
Okay, last fun question, then we'll wrap it up. What are two of your main or major gym pet peeves?
Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, at 365 Fitness, no one likes to re-rack their weights. So every single day I have a meltdown in the morning when I get there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it just looks like a disaster. So I'm walking around in between clients, like re-racking stuff. So that is by far my number one pet peeve. And I have issues with people that are just on their phones, like sitting on a machine and they're just texting or whatever. And I get having your phone. I have my phone with me at all times when I'm in the gym, but I don't think it's proper gym etiquette or being considerate of others when you're just like hogging a machine sitting there with your phone. You step aside and text whoever it is that you need to text, or take that selfie or whatever it is that you're doing. That's fine. Go ahead and do it, but get off the equipment while you're doing it.
Amen. Amen. All right, Brooke. Before I do a quick outro and I let you go, I want to give you the kind of the final word. So if you have anything you want to leave with us, any final thoughts, any final words, why don't you make sure you give us your Instagram, any shout outs? I know you've got sponsors and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You share whatever you want to share in closing things out. I'll do an outro and that'll be a wrap. So platform's yours.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I feel like I got a spot. Look, we're both wearing Iron Rebel stuff.
Yeah.
Iron Rebel, they're phenomenal. Great at supplements. They're great. Obviously, my coach, Matt Berzakot, I could talk about him forever because he's just an incredible person, coach, human. 365 Fitness, Anthony Sacamani and Ryan Cable, they're great there. Angel Competition Bikinis. They had a deal with me changing suits 3 different times at the Olympia. 3 times. So they kind of had like a diva to deal with, I guess. Phenomenal. Let's see, HG Physiques. I could go on forever. I feel like I shouldn't be talking about all this stuff, but there's so many incredible people that have had an impact in my journey, and I'm forever grateful for them. And, you know, one piece of advice that I could give any person is just, if you have a dream, go for it. So it might not happen overnight, and it probably shouldn't happen overnight. If it is that big of a dream and that big of a goal, it's going to take some time, but it is worth it. You know, once you achieve it, and I still haven't even achieved all my goals and dreams, but once you are on that road and that path and that journey, you'll never be upset that you pursued it. So get through the hard times and it'll all work out.
Well said. All right, Brooke, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your life story and bodybuilding story with us. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. If you guys have not done so already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube in regards to Behind the Muscle podcast. And then also please take this episode with Brooke, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Brooke, tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.